Hi, it's Susan, and I recently painted and released this autumn stream as a class inside my watercolor painting community. In this video, I'll share a glimpse of the practice and painting process for this scene. Whether you're looking for inspiration or practical tips, I hope this peek into my process will give you ideas to take into your next painting. This was painted from a reference photo, and when a reference photo appears to be complicated or overwhelming, I find that doing small value studies helps me ease into the painting process. Sometimes value studies can simply help me begin to really look at the subject I'm working with. So if you're a beginner, don't worry too much about if you're doing it quote-unquote right. It's really just about becoming familiar with the subject matter. Doing the value study with watercolor then also helps me get over the initial fear of putting strokes down on paper and gives me a chance to test and play with certain techniques that I might want to use later. I'm just doing it at a smaller scale first. In my membership, I break down how I do value studies to help me simplify a complex scene and begin to notice areas of importance that may want more attention during the painting process, which is a great way, again, to get familiar and comfortable prior to painting. Many people tell me drawing is not their strength, and that's okay. Being able to simply do a rough sketch serves to provide a map to where we'll be painting. This is different than drawing. The sketch is not our finished piece, and it doesn't have to look good. In my sketch, I like to focus on main elements and make sure that I've given myself reminders of where light and dark areas are. This shows me where I need to pay attention to edges as I put paint down. In my membership, I like to share the video of my sketch and take members through the sketching process. I've heard from them that it helps them practice their drawing skills, which is a great foundational skill to work on for anyone who loves creating visual art. Now I apply watercolor. Watercolor is not the most straightforward medium. It's also not the easiest to break down into a step-by-step method because water is obviously fluid and not static. The painting takes us places depending on what techniques we want to achieve and where it's wet at that time. As a general rule of thumb, however, it's usually best to start with light washes of colors with the bigger shapes first. After that, I layer in a darker version of the colors and begin to create more detail with smaller marks. The paint consistency, or water to paint ratio, tends to begin to shift and get more concentrated over time as the painting is getting worked on as well. For beginners, painting in large areas working wet like this can feel really challenging. So for this painting, I worked mostly on the top half first and then the bottom half to help split up the amount of area that was being managed at one time. After the larger areas are done, I come in and do the details and darkening. Getting the darkest darks, lightest lights, and the fine details added to the painting really allow the painting to come together. For this painting, I used a scrap piece of watercolor paper and I used it to make marks. I also used white gouache mixed with some of the greens and yellows to create opaque marks to indicate leaves and branches. This part is really the finishing touch, but it's also very easy to find yourself not making it here, past the so-called ugly phase of the watercolor painting. In my painting classes, I often talk about how I used to trash many of my paintings because I thought they were ruined, but now I encourage members to see it through and get to the smallest details and darkest darks at the end, because you never know how it might turn out. Worst case, it still doesn't turn out, but you got some practice in. This painting turned out to be a bit more detailed and leans more towards the realistic side than I would have liked. When I paint, I have an idea of what I envision it to look or feel like. I'd love to make more progress towards painting looser than I have here in this painting. But that's the beauty of doing creative things. No one piece is the final or perfect piece. There will always be something to improve on, somewhere I want to go that I haven't been yet. But even if a painting falls below my expectations, it still taught me something, and it's still a marker that shows me where I am and how far I've already come. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this overview of my process has given you ideas to take into your next painting. And don't forget to subscribe for more watercolor videos and check out the description to join our community and get access to an online library full of watercolor classes. I'll see you in the next video.